Hello and welcome to Attentional Grounding. This is a new show we got going on. Old for me, but new for most of you guys. My name is Sterls, and my guy here, Rob T Radio. We're going to be bringing this show to you right here on Europe's largest sports podcast platform, that is Sports Social. We have been selected or agreed to come along and talk Buffalo Bills football. We're going to be talking about all things Buffalo Bills related. We're going to talk about NFL and just goof off on here. So for those of you who are in the backyard, welcome. And those of you who are across the pond, we want to say what's up and welcome to you. We want to interact, and we can't wait to get to know you. So this is Intentional Grounding. Rob, what's up, man? How you doing?
What's good, Sterls? Let's go, baby.
Yeah,
So
man.
Buffalo Bills talk specifically here. Of course, we'll touch on the entire NFL, but I am hyped to be here. Excited to be bringing you this all year long.
Dude, it's gonna be fun, man. This is like it's one of those things where you and I talk about it and we text about it, but now we're just gonna talk about it on here for everybody to hear, whether you like it or not.
That you didn't want to do a podcast with me in the off season?
No, I hated your guts in the off season.
I know
it's seasonal. It's seasonal. If you didn't know that already.
Yeah. I mean, listen, mental health guy's already back in the chat, letting us know that he knew who it was who was making sure we didn't have a podcast in the off season.
Yeah. He couldn't handle it because Michigan won the national title. There's so many things that he was frustrated with, and you know, I'm a big mental health guy fan. And for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, so this is also live. So this is live and in podcast form. But yeah, we're going to be here all season long, and we're just going to have fun. So, dude, let's talk. Let's. It's. I know, right? It's football. First of all, let's just say that it's football, and I'm excited about it. You know, I haven't gotten to my weekly routines and traditions yet because we're still in the preseason phase.
Yeah, it's tough.
It's tough in the preseason, right? You know, you watch the all 22, you're looking at guys that probably won't make aren't going to make the roster. So, you know, it's like the picture is not painted clearly just yet, but we're going to be getting there real soon, man. And I'm excited about it.
And I don't think the picture's as unclear as we like to make it out. Listen, man, the Bills in particular, which this is a Bills podcast, you know, the Bills in particular have probably, I want to say, 5 spots on a game day roster up for grabs, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe like 7 or 8 spots overall.
Yeah.
You know, it's not as much of an unknown as everybody thinks. When you go through these teams, I feel like a lot of them, you know, 50 of the 53 guys are decided, and you're talking about a couple people here and there, you know?
Yeah,
so,
I mean,
I think you are seeing those guys, is kind of my point, in the preseason. I think you are seeing those guys play, and you kind of have a feel for what the team is going to look like, even if it's not presenting itself on the field.
Yeah, the product that you see maybe that's on the field is definitely, it doesn't resemble what's gonna happen week 1 against Arizona. Like you know, you're seeing very vanilla coverages, schemes on offense and defense. You know, you're not seeing what's being installed in training camp, and rightfully so. I mean, you know, there's some gamesmanship involved there. So when I look at preseason, there are a few things that I look at, and we're gonna jump into the game recap. But I want to see what the rookies have done. You know, I want to see some of those highlighted camp battles, like, you know, how's Kaiir Elam looking, and you know, Cedric Van Granger, what he looks like, and so forth. And so those are the kind of things that that I tend to keep my eye on. It's football and it's exciting, but it just doesn't feel like it's back all the way yet, is what I'm trying to say.
Stop making excuses.
See, there you go.
Listen, just because you come in soft, right? Just because you come in not ready for all this after taking what was it, 6 months off? Talking sports, talking football. But
Yeah,
just because you're coming in, unprepared for training camp here, doesn't mean that it needs to feel like that. You know what I mean?
it does need to feel like that because that's how the world works, Rob. Okay, from my lens, if you didn't know, but let's jump into the game
You like
recap.
coming in
So,
soft? That's the
hey now, what you do behind closed doors, you keep that, okay?
I'm just throwing it out there, dog, and
Nah, man,
make
we
sure we're
we
on the
we
same page.
we coming in here guns blazing on the intentional grounding podcast, man. So let's get into the game recap. The Buffalo Bills they hosted the Chicago Bears, and they lost to the tune of 33-6. There were points in this game, Rob, where I felt like, what am I watching? Why am I watching this right now? Is there anything else better that I could be doing? I mean, this was a performance that was uninspiring in so many ways.
We'll go through the whole recap because there are things to talk about, things that will affect the regular season and so on and so forth. But there really is, for me, just one thing that I take away from it. And there's been a lot of talk about Sean McDermott. There's been a lot of talk about things that he's said or done or so on and so forth. And a lot of that is absolutely justified. But he sat at that press conference after the game and simply said, I don't care who is on the field, that wasn't up to our standard. We have a standard here, and that wasn't up to it. And for all the things that you could say about McDermott, and you and I are going to say a lot of them throughout the year, for all the things that you can say about it, he's not wrong. They have created a standard there, and they did let down on it a little bit. And I think that to be able to, as a coaching staff, go into the film session and just lay your guys out for that, you know what I mean?
Right.
Really lay into them for that, I think is a useful tool that can come out of that game, even though we might not be able to take away, really any other things from it other than, getting on the guys a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, you hit the nail on the head there. I mean, Sean McDermott, I guess we're conditioned. We're used to winning games in the preseason. Like the Bills notoriously are one of the better teams in the preseason. Now, you're not going to win every preseason game, and nor do you want to, but you typically on those Sean McDermott led teams, you see hope and glimmer of potential. Now, granted, this is the first preseason game. So I think that's one of the things that, as we get later into the show, when we talk about this next week's opponent, the Pittsburgh Steelers, some of the things that we're looking to see, a bounce back, definitely for sure. But talking about this game, it was awesome to see Caleb Williams come out and take command of the offense for the Chicago Bears. Caleb Williams is one of those guys where, I mean, even in the pre-draft process, you talk about the intangibles and what he's able to do working off script. We saw a little bit of that in the 2 drives that he had where he rolled to his right and hit Cole Kmet on a laser. We saw him hit Swift with a little cross the body throw on a screen, avoiding the rush. And so Caleb Williams, to me, looked pretty good. What are your thoughts on him?
He made a couple real athletic plays. There were a couple real nice throws in there. You saw what everybody talks about makes an elite quarterback elite, which is that secondary play, not just having to be on schedule, on time, on script, all that kind of stuff, which he needs to learn how to do as well. And that'll come with time. I think that part is actually going to be harder for him to get than the improvising, because the improvising to him comes naturally. And there were a couple times as a Bills fan that you were watching it and you said to yourself, I think they got him bottled up. I think they can get a stop. Right. And then all of a sudden, he unleashes one down the sideline or he boots out. There was some nice plays that he made. And it just shows you that kind of skill set does translate from, college to NFL ball, and he's going to have that with him forever. Now, what he needs to make sure that he can do is run the offense the way it's supposed to be run as well. And I think that's why you saw those drives stall out for field goals, is because the guy needs a little bit more time with NFL,
Right.
not even NFL defenses, but an NFL running an NFL offense and making sure that he's efficient with it. Because when you get down into those tight red areas or even the high red zone, it's good. The windows shrink. Everybody's faster. Everybody's the best player on their college team, right? And so you got to make sure that you can run the scheme efficiently and get the ball in the end zone for those kind of plays, you know?
Yeah. And
What'd you
there's
think?
I mean, there's a big schematic adjustment coming from, the offense that he ran at USC and Oklahoma versus what he's going to be expected to run. The verbiage is different, what he's expected to run for the Chicago Bears. So I think, from what I saw of him, I mean, he's a solid quarterback. I mean, he's the best Bears quarterback to me that they've ever had already. He hasn't even played a down yet. We're talking guys like
Dude,
Rex Grossman
people
and
love to talk shit about Jay Cutler. He was a good quarterback.
Jay Cutler was Jay Cutler he was a good quarterback.
Good quarterback.
He was a good quarterback. He had some blunders, but I think, when we talk about potential and ceiling, Caleb Williams is definitely he's I don't think there's a quarterback that the Bears have fielded that has that kind of upside and ceiling. So
yeah, Mitch Trubisky. I mean, this is what we were talking about 4 years ago, wasn't it?
Not like this. Come on now. It's Money Mitch. We're gonna
God, I'm getting old. 8 years ago, right?
Bro.
4 years ago.
You remember when he came out and you said, I don't want to be called I want to be called Mitchell Trubisky.
Well, when you get drafted second overall, you get to designate if you're called Mitch or Mitchell. And then when you flop like you did, we just ignore whatever you said at that time.
Yeah.
And hear whatever we feel like calling
you. He's Money Mitch forever in my heart. That's who he is. But you know what? Caleb to me, he looked great. I can't wait to see what he looks like playing with in a real football game. Moore and Allen and Odunze, those guys are gonna be freaking amazing. So quarterbacks from basketball schools aren't good. Well,
I half just wanted to see if I could do that, but half love that comment too, Drew.
First of all, USC is not a basketball school.
No, he's talking about Mitch. He's talking about Money Mitch.
Money Mitch. I was like, yo.
Okay. He's saying we should have known better.
Okay, Mitchy Biscuits over here. Yeah, that's who he was on Saturday.
What an excellent transition into some of the things that Bills fans are talking about from this game, one of which being Mitch Trubisky as the backup quarterback. I mean, I got to be super careful how I say this, because on a Bills podcast, man,
right,
we've been blessed with getting to watch 4 straight years of Josh Allen.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he's missed a game through there. And so we hope that once again, it's not any kind of issue. But are we worried about Mitch at all?
That's a great question. I'm going to say no. I'm not worried about Mitch and the title. Okay, hold on. And let me say this.
The fear in that that your voice went up like 3
I had to think about it. about it. No, I mean it's the title of the show is Are We Nervous Yet? And the reason why we coined it that way is because I think there's a lot of overreacting that takes place in the preseason, right? But there's some valid points and concerns that fans and people that we make and think that, being backup quarterback, like, first of all, let's knock on wood and mention that, Josh Allen has been the most healthiest quarterback in the NFL since he's entered the league. Knock on wood everywhere. We want to make sure he stays healthy. So, the thought of the Bills having a decent backup quarterback is just novel. It's not real, because we haven't had to see a backup quarterback play real meaningful downs in games. So does Mitch worry me? He sucked. Let's call it what it is.
Now,
He sucked.
well,
He-
I'm going to
he-
slow your roll just a little bit here because I'm not worried about this either. But the other thing that people are talking about is the offensive line, and the offensive line sucked too. And it's hard for your quarterback to be good when your offensive line sucks.
the offensive line was bad. And it was atrocious. Pass protection wasn't the problem when Allen was in the game and Mitch was in the game. I think that the rails came off when Shane Buechele, who took 6 sacks, that's when things kind of went haywire there. But yeah, the offensive line, that's something like if you want to be nervous or concerned, I think that's a valid concern to have because we saw something similar to this last year when the Bills played the Pittsburgh Steelers. They have that 3-4 front, and they said, we didn't really prepare for, what they were throwing at us, so.
Which is standard protocol in the preseason.
Right.
Maybe one of the 3 games you put in an actual game plan, you do actual study on what the other team's going to throw at you, but a veteran O-line, which is what it is now. I mean, I know O'Cyrus Torrence is only in his 2nd year, but I mean, I was watching a highlight from the 13 seconds game, and there's Spencer Brown in there. Like, this is a vet O-line now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so when you have a veteran offensive line, you don't really plan that kind of stuff in the preseason. You just kind of expect them to do better than they did.
And expectations versus last year coming into this season are pretty high to me because Dion played his best season. Connor McGovern played his best season at guard. O'Cyrus Torrence played every single snap on offense last season. And Spencer Brown, who we had major questions about coming into last season, had his best year. So that was I guess I understand it, but it was more of a surprise to see in the run game, there was just no room. I mean, you had James Cook, 4 carries, 2 yards, right? The same was for our 3rd, 4th round running back. Ray Davis was the same way. And so if anything, I expected, okay, maybe, you have all these new receivers, you're still working out the kinks, but the running game should at least get you going. And that just wasn't there.
Yeah. I just, as much as I say all that about the offensive line, I'm still not worried about them.
Not at all.
I'm not. If you pressed me to pick which I was more worried about, I'd probably tell you I was more worried about Trubisky than I was the offensive line. Because to me, as long as we don't have Connor McGovern snap problems, that's the biggest thing to me.
Which has been reported in training camp that he's been having.
I know. That is an actual issue, I think.
I think so.
But aside from that, I just can't foresee with 4 of your 5 starters back. Granted, 1 is moved, but with 4 of your 5 starters back, I can't see that big of a drop off happening. So,
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I mean, you're moving McGovern to center and you're expecting David Edwards, who hasn't really played meaningful downs in 2 years at guard, to be league average, a suitable starter. Like, it's a concern for me just because this is how I feel. Like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Like, they drafted Cedric Van Parent Granger, who looked good with the 3rd team, but he's got a resume that speaks for itself. 3-year starter at Georgia, 2-time national champion, went up against some really great defensive tackles. So, I guess maybe my expectation, what I think should happen, was thrown out the window by the Bills coming out saying, hey, McGovern is going to go back to center. And, we've heard McGovern say over the summer that that's home for him. It's still concerning just because what you hear from training camp. Again, it's preseason. Like, we didn't know how good Terrell Bernard was going to be last year either, right?
But remember, we had all that. You're referencing that Steeler game, and we had all the same kind of noise come out of the Steeler game, and they were fine.
Yeah.
Like everybody was fine.
Yeah.
And
It's
so part of me is just kind of like, you got 4 of the 5 same guys. I think Mitch Morse is more important than people gave him credit for. I will say
mhm,
that. I was a
mhm.
big Mitch Morse fan. I think his athleticism and his smarts were underrated. So I think they will miss him a little bit, but I'm not
Yeah.
overly concerned. And for Trubisky, I mean, my simple question is for him to you is this: if he had played with the starting offensive line, do you think it would have looked as bad as it looked?
I don't probably not. Um, but I still don't have much confidence in Trubisky as a backup quarterback. But yeah,
What do you want? You want Ryan Tannehill?
I'll take Ryan Tannehill as a backup.
I mean,
Absolutely.
he's your name that's out there, right? Like he's it.
I'll take Matt Barkley. Go bring him
Oof.
back.
Woof. Woof. Woof talk. Come on now. Let's let's be let's have higher standards than Matt Barkley, please.
Hey,
I mean, dude.
bring old Matty B back, man. Let him help,
No, but I did send a tweet that said, just hey, do me a favor. Just send Fitz the playbook.
that'd be great.
Just
Sign me up.
just
Sign me up.
send Ryan Fitzpatrick the playbook. Just in case.
Come,
just
Ryan, if you're listening to this show, come with your beard.
yeah.
Come with no shirt on,
Sign him
dude.
as some
Just
sort of advisor.
yeah,
Send him the
seriously,
playbook.
yeah,
Just so we're
yeah,
ready. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Just so
I mean, you just never know what to expect. But yeah, I'd like to see Fitzy in there. Shoot, Tyrod, he's on the roster. But I mean, there are guys out there but I don't think the Bills are ready to move on. Um, from Money Mitch, and it is preseason. I mean, Mitch does have some valuable experience in games. He's led a team to the playoffs, so it's one performance. It's a new offense for him. He hasn't played in Brady's
good point.
offense, so
Good point.
we will keep him on the burner. We're gonna monitor his progress. But we from a veteran quarterback though, we needed to see more from him on Saturday. So we'll move on to the next one. Pass rush. The Bills now, maybe this could be a therapy moment for me, okay? Because last season the Bills, I mean, they had in my opinion, they had one of their best seasons rushing the passer. I mean, they were really efficient. They were top 5 in the league in terms of total sacks. But they're even that's the case. I mean, you lose Leonard Floyd, concerning. Von Miller didn't give you anything last year. He showed flashes at the end, so you hope that he can turn into old Von or shade some glimpse. I mean, it's like playing guitar. Like, you don't forget how to play guitar. If you're an NFL Hall of Fame pass rusher, you don't forget how to rush the passer. I got to see something from him. From me watching all 22, Rousseau and Epinesa, they were fine in their run fits and stuff like that. They really didn't have many opportunities, in my opinion, to like really let their hair back and rush the passer. But I think, when you look at this roster from defensive end to, defensive tackle, D-line total, I'm a little worried about the pass rush, man. I think that's one of the needs that the Bills have, that they have to address. Maybe they can get a hot shot pass rush at the trade deadline, but those guys don't get traded. But at next season, that has to be the top priority to me.
I hate that. Oof.
I know you
I hate
do,
that so much.
but it's the truth.
Well, so here are the things, right? One, you don't get Von Miller out there. You hope this year that is a difference that it wasn't last year,
Right.
right? I appreciate him very much for redoing his contract.
Mm-hmm.
I think the guy has earned a lot of leniency from me. But reports around camp are, at least the first few days, certainly, when his legs were fresh, that they look different and they look like they're back a little bit. And so I'm hoping that's the case, because you need him to be Von Miller, I think, for this defense to run the way you want it to.
Right.
What I was going to say to what you said, though, is not I hope it shows up. It better show up.
Oh, better. Well,
Yeah,
okay.
because you kind of couched it with like, I hope it shows up. And you and I had talked about this maybe at a bar one day, I think. But you have the 27th cheapest offense in the league. And that is with a $50 million a year contract for Josh Allen. I want you to think about that. We're up against the cap. Where is all that money? It's all on the defensive side of the ball.
Yep, it is.
All on the defensive side. There are no big contracts on the offensive side of the ball. You got Dawkins, you got McGovern if you want to count it, and you got Josh. And you're looking at Josh saying, figure out how to score 20 points a game because we pay you $50 million a year and you're Josh Allen. So figure out how to score 20 points a game. And you get rid of your two safeties. You revamp the corner room kind of in a major way, to be honest with you. It doesn't feel like it because Kaiir Elam has been on the roster, but from October last year, from preseason last year to preseason this year, you have completely revamped that cornerback room. Got rid of an all-pro. You brought in a new number one corner. You're talking about Kaiir Elam possibly taking Christian Benford's snaps away, even though Benford's been great. Taron Johnson's kind of become the leader of that secondary as a whole. Listen, I think it was Hansel I saw put up the safety statistics for Taylor Rapp and Damar Hamlin and showed that they are eerily similar to the statistics that Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde had when they came in and started playing for Sean McDermott's defense. But you're taking a big chance that these guys are starting caliber safeties.
And that's what I want to caution everybody with. Like, I appreciate the hindsight and going back and posting that, but context matters. And if there's a position that I have confidence in Sean McDermott, it's defensive back, right? But you don't just replace two all-pro defensive backs.
100%.
Right? Well, or three. Tre'Davious White,
right?
Micah Hyde, right? Those guys, Jordan Poyer. I think,
but to round out that other point before, because we can move on to safety and talk about it. I think that's actually one of the legit storylines that we can talk about. But just before we do, to circle back to the pass rush, Doggett better be there. Like, you paid Epinesa after he had a big year and a contract year. That always freaks me out a little bit. But I better see that same dog in him that I saw last year. Rousseau,
hold on.
He's real good. I need to see him jump to that next level.
That's it. Rousseau has to take the next step. And I love Rousseau, but there's always some nagging injury that he gets early in the season, mid-season, that kind of derails his production. Last season it was a foot. Right. Like, this is one of those, like, buddy, we really need him to stay healthy and take that next step, because before the injury this past season, now he played through it, but before injury, like, we were talking, this guy's a double-digit sack guy.
Yeah.
Fully healthy, right?
Yeah.
So I think he's already one of the top 10 edge defenders in the league. Like, that's the truth. Like, he's good. Epinesa, can we get 8 sacks, 9 sacks from him? Because he's notoriously a 6.5 sack guy. Can we get 8 or 9 out of him?
But I felt like last year he turned into more of a nuisance.
Okay, what do you mean?
He might have had 6. He might have had close to the same number of sacks that he had in years past. But context matters. There you go. Right? Like, it is. The moments were bigger that he stepped up and made a difference in. And some of that had to do with who's on the other side of him.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not anymore, So these three guys, I think, really have to anchor your pass rush in a meaningful way, because you're going to be figuring things out at safety. I was going to say defensive back. I don't know. I mean, I think the Kaiir thing is really a luxury, which I'm happy to have. But you're going to be figuring things out at safety. You're going to be wondering how healthy you are at linebacker, which reports are good, but we'll still be wondering how healthy we are at linebacker. That D line, dog, that's got to carry the day. It really does, because you're going to be figuring things out on offense too. So that's what I
that
want
D
to say.
line is the catalyst as to why the Bills don't advance in the playoffs like they should, in my opinion. I think it starts up front in the trenches, and the D line. I mean, injuries ravaged the secondary and linebacker core against the Chiefs, but the D line, I mean, they got to perform in high stake games. You know, I'm not saying you got to sack Patrick Mahomes, because people can't do that in the postseason, but you got to make life difficult for him. You know, like what Baltimore did. You know, even though they didn't win the game, but they made life on Pat hard because they were in his face the whole game.
And it's interesting that you say that, because my takeaway for all 4 of their last 4 playoff games is the same.
Yep, it's the same
Because
movie over and over again.
Joe Burrow was not bothered.
Yeah.
Burrow was not bothered in the divisional round 2 years ago. And then for the Steelers and the Dolphins games, both games they won, both games were closer than they should have been. And part of the reason was you could not rattle a third string quarterback, which is crazy to me. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah. So the pass. Let me tell you who I'm low key excited about. Javon Solomon. I think,
dude, everybody is so high on him right now.
Dude, if you go back and watch his tape at Troy, he's just a toolsy pass rusher. I think, you know, can he give me 3 to 5 sacks this year? I think he can. I think he can. I think he totally can. The thing to me that, okay, so he's a 6'1", 6'2", 250-pound defensive end. So he doesn't have the length, the desired length that you want. You know, you want him to be 6'4", 6'5". That would be ideal and perfect.
Well,
but what he's able to do, what he's able to do with that bend and first step, I really like it. And I thought he had a couple reps on Saturday and defending the run that I'm like, okay, like that's awesome.
Well, you're ignoring our good friend Dave's boy Kingsley Jonathan too.
I ain't, man. I don't want to hear nothing about no Kingsley Jonathan. We know what that boy is. We know what Kingsley is, man. Like he's an African prince. Okay, like
Oof.
He's awesome, dude. He's like coming to America, but he ain't. Oh man, you talk about like the tools and athleticism. That dude's got it. He looks the part.
And this is what I remembered about Solomon too. So I went back and looked. Granted, I don't do as much draft prep as you do. So you've probably watched way more tape on this guy than I have. I only watched tape after they drafted him. But here's what I remember. This is what stuck out in my head from Javon Solomon when I just took a quick look at him. When you pull up his stats, granted it's box score scouting, 2021, 11 sacks, 12 games. 2022, 4.5 sacks, 14 games. And then 2023 broke out, 16 sacks, 23 games. So where is that inconsistency coming from? Because that's exactly what we're talking about, that we cannot afford to have on a championship contender.
Yeah, but you can. You can, because you don't have the dogs necessary right now. The Bills, outside of Von Miller.
Maybe we should move to our next topic then, because maybe you need to go get you one of them dogs.
Listen, man, they pass rush it to me is more important. I'm a pass rush over coverage. Like, they're both important. I just think, your pass rush, what the defensive line is able to do, comes first, right? Like the Bills, that's their glaring weakness. It is.
I don't think it's a weakness. I really don't.
I do.
I think with a healthy Daquan Jones and a healthy Von Miller, that is 50% of your defensive line that you did not have last year. Most of it. I mean, it was game 5, Daquan got hurt, and Vaughn showed flashes in the last playoff game, people have said, but not really. So, when I'm listening to Baldy break down like, oh, he's got a explosive step here and it looks like he might be getting it back kind of thing. All right, so you didn't have Vaughn all year either, right? That's half your starting defensive line. And
Yeah.
I know we got to expect more of Ed Oliver. That's a big contract, but he played up to it last year.
He did. He
didn't exceed it, but he played up to it. And with the way that those contracts are going, that looks like a pretty good deal now.
Yeah.
Bean has been real good at doing that, signing him right before there's a little explosion. And so that contract looks okay. You need them to play to their level.
Right.
If Ed Oliver, Daquan Jones, Von Miller, and Greg Rousseau all play to their level, I don't think it's a weakness at all.
But you're banking on something if. You know what I mean?
Well, you could say the same thing for Josh Allen if he has the same year that he's had the last 4 years.
But Josh Allen has time on task and consistency. So it's like that's guaranteed to me. You know what I mean?
He also has 4 new wide receivers. He's got one guy who's caught a pass from him.
It's Josh Allen, dog.
Game.
He's Superman, bro.
I'm not arguing with you. I'm just saying they're all ifs at this point. I think the discussion needs to be that defensive line room needs to lead that defense, not that they could be a weakness.
Right. Not secondary driven.
Right.
But I think that defense needs to set the tone. And it's something that if you're a Bills fan,
remember, sorry to cut you off, Strauss.
No,
but if you remember, when everybody was healthy, before the Von Miller knee injury, and then when everybody was healthy before the London game, they were piling up some sacks, dog. Like they were getting after quarterbacks. And it was like, this is how McDermott's defense is supposed to work. This is how he envisions his defense running. And then we found out that like
London happened.
Then London happened.
That was, to all our friends out there across the pond, that was the worst game. Dude, I remember. We didn't watch the game together, but we texted the whole time. And so for those of when we watch games together, Rob is he's the like nothing good's gonna happen guy. Yes, you are. You are totally that guy. He is the more,
I'm the realist. I'm the realist.
That's what negative people call it. I'm just real. That's what
y'all
say.
Who can't handle real life call it. So here we are.
So that London game, boy, you talk about gut wrench. That was a crushing blow to the season last year. We can't have another one of those.
Well, but so, I mean, they're piling up sacks before that, right?
Right. They look great. They look great.
And same thing can be said October of the year before when Von Miller is healthy. And they're just ripping defensive lines apart. And
Mahomes included.
There is, when you're saying, hey, Alan, there's time on task here. There's proof. There is that for this group if they can stay healthy. And I don't know. I mean, an ACL and whatever the hell happened to Daquan Jones last year, those aren't like, oops, I got hurt. You know what I mean?
Don't even say it out loud. Don't even say it out loud.
Got to stay healthy.
Yeah, no, they got to stay healthy. I think that's. I mean, shit. That is of the utmost importance. Please, please stay healthy. Please stay healthy. But yeah, so the O-line is. We talked about O-line. We talked about defensive line. Let's take a little trip around the league, shall we? Let's go around the league, and this is the segment of the show where. We kind of we pause our Bill stuff. We'll get back to that here in a minute, but I want to talk about some things that's taken place around the league. For those of you who aren't Bills fans and are watching the show, thank you. But first round quarterbacks. Let's talk about that. So we had the debuts of Caleb Williams, Bo Nix, JJ McCarthy. Solid. Those guys performed. You guys know that I'm a big JJ McCarthy fan. I don't want to say I
Well,
told you so,
you
but
hold
I
on
told you so.
before you get on your hype train. You see what
Uh,
happened today?
he got hurt.
Yeah,
What? He's gonna be back. JJ
better
will be
hope.
back.
Better hope.
Listen, I'm gonna text JJ and ask him if he's okay. Okay.
The info I saw said they don't know how extensive it is until they get in there, and that
Yeah.
if it's just shaving down the meniscus, it's only going to be a couple weeks. Meniscus tear of some
It,
sort.
you
And if
have
it's
to
just
be
shaving down the meniscus,
extremely careful with the meniscus. You have
yeah,
to be.
yeah. Well, and so if it's just shaving it down, apparently just a couple weeks is the tweet I saw. If it's trying to repair the meniscus, you're talking a few months and season might be shot there.
So let me add some context to that. So for those of you who don't know, JJ suffered a knee injury at Michigan last year in the Penn State game. And that they didn't, they didn't publicize it. They didn't really talk about it. That's why, that's what part of the reason why they ran 32 straight times. And that pass, and the pass rush that Penn State had was just incredible. But yeah, he was, so that Maryland game, so he was dealing with a knee injury. I'm not sure if this is the same knee that he was dealing with, but I wanted to throw that out there that okay, because we got to keep in mind, these prospects when they don't get an off season. They
Yeah.
are they from the time that their school is done playing, they're in training, they're getting ready. They don't have that time to let their bodies heal. And I think that's why some of these injuries happen. But besides that, JJ looked pretty good. And it's like I said, it's when I told you so. People were like, well, JJ didn't, he didn't do that in Michigan, blah, 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 blah. Well, one, they didn't ask him to, but
So
he has the
that's not an
ability. And
excuse.
I've told you
If he
this.
wasn't your boy, that wouldn't be an excuse
Nah,
for you.
Rob, there's two hats for me when it comes to this. There is
Hey,
draft analyst hat, okay, and then there's Michigan fan goggles hat.
yeah.
I really do try to take that hat off and put draft analyst hat on when this past offseason we talked about JJ McCarthy, but I think he has all the tools, intangibles through the roof. You're not even gonna. I mean, this guy
Fine.
is great.
Hard to
But
miss with
anyway,
quarterbacks with that kind of thing.
he had a 40-yard touchdown pass down the left sideline. That was just a dot. He had a dot. So yeah, hopefully maybe this is a 4 to 8 week injury. We'll see. Sam Darnold pretty much, I mean, I guess, if it's a 2-week thing, great. That means he can come back and maybe he can beat out Sam Darnold for QB1 in Minnesota. We don't know. We don't know that. I hope he beats out Sam Darnold.
Nope.
God,
Ain't no
he
way.
needs to. Ain't no way.
Ain't no way.
See,
Ain't
that's
no
my
way he's
Michigan
starting
goggles.
week one. Now, I think you are going to have rookie quarterbacks starting week one, but
Speaking
no
of
way.
rookie quarterback starting week one, let's talk about Bo Nix. Bo Nix, dude. Now, let's add some context here. And Rob, why don't you tell the listeners what you do on a day-to-day basis, what some of your job entails.
I work for Altitude Sports Radio, a couple different capacities, but I do get to be around people that I trust doing very intense evaluation of Bo Nix so far through camp. So not just the information I'm getting is not just from one preseason game. And we got mental health guy asking us in our little comment here in a little chat, is it a wrap? Bo Nix week one. It was a wrap before the game. That's what I heard. I heard it was a wrap
before the game.
Before the game. And that they were going to, how do I put this? They're going to do everything they can to make sure that he looks like he deserves the job. Now, that sounds bad, but I think putting a quarterback in a position to succeed is exactly what the coach's job is, right? So I don't mind them trying to put their rookie in a position to succeed. They thought, I think, having him start game 2, not game 1, would be advantageous. I think they also thought that having him start the week that they were in practice against the team. So the Packers are coming to Denver this week, and they will have joint practices on Friday, I think it is.
Yes, Friday.
So he'll get to see their defense before he's out on the field versus it.
Mhm.
Even if they're not running that exotic stuff, he'll see more exotic stuff in practice.
Right.
So he will have seen their defense already. And these are all things done, what I hear, to put Bo Nix in a position to succeed. The kid has 4 years worth of starts, started more games in college than any other quarterback in history. What I needed to see from him was not being, check down, run the ball guy.
Right.
And he pushed the ball down the field a couple times. There was even a couple nice secondary plays like we talked about with Caleb Williams. We mentioned that when we were doing the recap of the Bills game, that he had a few nice second reaction plays. There was one for Bo, and it was a third down, and he boots out, and he boots to his left, not his right. So he's got to go against his body there to throw the ball. Makes a nice throw to Cortland Sutton right on the sideline. Nice little dot, picks up the first down. So I saw some good things from him in the preseason game, but I think it's already settled. I think he's going to be your week 1 starter, and if it's not him, it's because they don't want him to get hammered against the first couple defenses they're playing. So I would be surprised if it's not him, though.
Yeah, and Bo Nix was 15 to 21, 125 yards and a touchdown. Now Zach Wilson had a good game as well. So I mean, I don't want to just heap all the praise on Bo Nix. I mean, both quarterbacks, and Jarrett Stidham came in mop up time, but Bo Nix
Jarrett Stidham started, dog.
But it wasn't like real. You know what I mean? Like it was.
Yeah, but he didn't. He looked the worst of the three of them.
Yeah, he did. He did.
Zach Wilson has not and will not get a chance to start. They've already made him the third string quarterback. So with the way that Stidham looked and the fact that Zach Wilson's already on the bench, like, to me, it's Bo Nix.
Yeah, Bo Nix, man. That's a guy you want leading your locker room. Just a great guy, by all accounts. And he has, he's a guy that he could do it both ways. Like he can stand and sit in the pocket. He can make plays off script. Smart, cerebral.
He's more athletic than he gets credit for. Too.
Yeah, I mean, if people can remember when he went to Auburn, he was running all over the place. Like
which is why I put my finger up. Is this the second time Bo Nix is going to take a job from Jarrett Stidham? Did he take that job from Stidham?
Oh, I don't want to.
I don't know if they overlap.
I don't know. I don't know.
It would have been close. It would have been close.
Jarrett Stidham hates Bo Nix.
I'm saying, dog. That's what
Jarrett
I'm saying.
Stidham watching the draft, round 1, and he's looking at Sean Payton, and they call Bo Nix. He's like, damn. All right, I'm going to head out. Yeah. So of those 3 quarterbacks, they were great. They were great. The NFL, I mean, if this can continue, JJ get healthy, but if these guys can continue to, I definitely want to see the Broncos have a franchise quarterback. That's important to me.
The NFL needs the Broncos to have a franchise.
Yeah.
They need somebody in that afternoon slot. And before you say Patrick Mahomes, when they are 12 o'clock games, he does not always play 12 o'clock Central games. He does not always play in the afternoon slot. Sometimes they put him in the morning slot.
And Pat is plays a lot of primetime games. But you need the Broncos need a franchise quarterback. All right, so let's segue on to our next around league topic, trade request.
No, I'm not letting you leave yet. I ain't letting you leave yet.
Why not?
So Drake May played like half a series.
I didn't even want to mention that.
You don't have to. Because who I'd rather talk about was Joe Milton. So I watched that game because it was like the only game on. I think that was Friday night, maybe. And
Yes.
Joe Milton went, I think it was, hold on, I'm looking here. 4 for 6 for 54 yards and a touchdown. And dog,
Now,
let me tell you, that touchdown was gorgeous. I mean,
dude,
it was beautiful.
he threw that on a rope.
It was an absolute laser. He manipulates the safety, so he's got the whole shot there. I mean, it was gorgeous.
It was Joe Milton. I've been watching that dude for a long time just because he started at Michigan.
Started at Michigan, yeah.
And he couldn't get it together. I mean, he needed a lot of, like, coming out of high school, just big, physical, dominant fella. But he had to learn to play the quarterback position. I think, learning it from Jim Harbaugh, I think is great for the time being that he was there. I think maybe playing in the Big Ten at that part of his career was probably a little bit too much. So, he learned, he was there for 2-3 years, and he goes to Tennessee to finish his career, and he started to develop. And Joe Milton, I'm telling you, man, like, if he could put it all together, that dude could be dangerous. He could be
we all know he's
dangerous.
got just an absolute howitzer.
Yeah.
We all know that.
His arm's probably stronger than Josh Allen's.
And he's athletically, obviously, very gifted.
Yeah.
He added, I think it was 50 rushing yards, something like that, 22 rushing.
He just has to put it all together.
Let's get on the Joe Milton hype train.
Shall we? If I had a horn, I'd press the horn.
Last time I was excited about a Patriots quarterback, but there you go. I want nothing more than Drake May to fall flat on his face. And,
see, that's not okay. You can't do that to Drake, okay? Kendrick May.
We had to get the Joe Milton update in there, dog.
Okay, fair, but Kendrick may have ended Drake, but we're not gonna shit on Drake May, okay? He's the Drake we live for. We need him to be good. We need him to be good.
Okay. All right.
And he just, man, okay, real quick though. He just, I don't know if you saw this, but when I look at Drake May, he gives me like, I don't care Jay Cutler vibes. He just looks like, just like, I'm just here. I'm just whatever.
Well, I mean, Drew said it earlier, right? Let's talk about if we're ready to have a quarterback from a basketball school. Can't do it. Not happening.
I don't know, man. I don't know, dude.
Trying to think of a good quarterback from a basketball school. No Kansas, no Duke. McNabb. McNabb's probably your best one.
But Syracuse hasn't done anything in a long time.
I know, but they're more of a basketball school than a football school. There's no arguing that.
They're just a school.
Wow. Oh, wow.
All right,
move on to the next topic
before people at Buffalo get mad at me. They're just a school. But anyway, trade talk. Okay, so Hassan Reddick has requested a trade officially. Matthew Judon of the New England Patriots has also requested a trade, and Brandon Ayuk, who's come out and said, "Hey, I'm not accepting any offer from the 49ers," according to Antonio Brown. And before we say, well, Antonio Brown said it, follow that man's account. He says some stupid shit, but he has like the real stuff that he posts, like when he talks about players and stuff, he is spot on every single time. And basically, according to Antonio Brown, he said, Brandon Ayuk was like, I'm not, don't give me no deal. That I ain't accepting no deal from the 49ers, and I want to be a Pittsburgh Steeler. So they have yet to figure out the compensation for both sides. I don't know if that's going to get done. Don't know. But I think it's interesting. So pass rusher.
What I heard today, and I just looked it up to see if that is still the case. But what I heard today was that the Steelers and the Niners have pretty much a deal in place. And it's just about Ayuk accepting the contract from the Steelers. So I think that's closer to the finish line maybe than we think. I think that really hurts. I think that really hurts the Niners, and I don't think it makes much of an impact on the Steelers.
Well, it depends on how good Ricky Pearsall is, right?
Sure.
Um,
But
you, you,
I think what it does is I think it moves all Debo snaps to wide receiver, obviously. And I think you get more McCaffrey snaps at wide receiver in the slot, that kind of thing.
yeah.
Um,
George
I
Kittle,
think it hurts,
they
but
got to
only
get him
so
more involved in the offense then, right?
I think it hurts, but only so much.
It does. And the
And when
scheme
it comes,
helps.
and here's the real question is nobody's reported what they're getting back yet. Is it George Pickens? Because if it's George Pickens, then
Oh,
Niners are coming out ahead. Okay.
Hey, dog, you can't. If you're Steelers, you can't give up George Pickens. And first of all, Brandon Ayuk, why you want to go to the Steelers?
I think
You know,
I don't
like they ain't got no quarterback.
I don't think Mike Tomlin gets enough credit for how much players want to play for him.
Culture setter for sure. Great,
I mean, he
great
is
coach.
an incredible coach.
Yep.
And I think because of what he's been through in his life, all that kind of stuff, I think he is the premier coach that people look around the league and they say, I want to play for X coach. It's Tomlin, and I think it's McVay. I don't think Shanahan's even in. I think it's Tomlin, McVay. You could probably throw Reed in there too, but I feel like people feel like Reed just has his little toys that he plays with, and that's it. So I just think the respect is immense, and there's a belief that he's going to figure out the quarterback thing, which maybe
I mean, it's time now. It's time now. They gotta, listen. Give it to Justin Fields and let him just do his thing, right? And then if you suck,
well, no, didn't you hear? Didn't you hear? Russell Wilson's the starter, of course.
Look, we learned that the hard way in Denver. Russ is just not the same player he once was, and
all right, let me put in here. So I mean, I can't see them actually trading George Pickens, right? But let me throw some other names out here to see if you think that they would be good for the 49ers at all. Because I do actually think some of these guys might be.
Top of the list?
Not the top of the list. I'm just going to go through the ones that I think might be worthwhile. Calvin Austin III.
Does nothing. He's fast.
I think that matters for that offense.
I mean, if you could develop a Calvin Austin, more power to you.
Van Jefferson.
Too injured. He didn't have great athletic profile as it is. So with those injuries, I just think he's wide receiver 4 depth.
Okay. Quez Watkins.
Another speedster. Didn't live up to potential in Philly, but I think he's probably of the receivers you name, he's probably the more intriguing one because he gives you something that Debo is quick more than he's more quick than he is fast. I think he'd help out.
Well, and that's why the fast guys are the ones that kind of pique my interest a little bit. Because if you get somebody if all they have to do, and this is what, to your point about Pearsall, right? Like if all they have to do is blow the top off that defense and let Kittle and Debo and Juszczyk work underneath and McCaffrey work underneath, then I mean,
yeah.
But he's not the one who's going to be most interesting for you. The one who's going to be most interesting for you, Roman Wilson.
Another Michigan guy.
I know the podcasters can't see it, but you should have seen his face light up when I mentioned the Michigan rookie wide receiver, Roman Wilson.
Because I love my guys, dog.
They're
not giving up. They aren't trading Roman. They better. Well, I would love to see Roman Wilson play for the 49ers, to be honest.
Oh, do you know how much better his career would be?
Much better.
Yeah.
Roman Wilson's very underrated, if you ask me. But But do you really need Roman Wilson when you have Ricky Pearsall?
Yes, because you don't know what they're really going to turn into.
Or if
So 2 kicks at that can is better than 1.
What's Debo's longevity look like? Because he's often injured, right? So you get a guy like Roman Wilson, who's an excellent route runner. He's going to do all the little things well. He's
I
a
think
4.3
he profiles more like
speed.
Ayuk. I think he profiles more like Brandon Ayuk
Yeah, he does.
than anybody
He
else that he
does.
mentioned.
He does. He's a guy that can run a full route tree. And he's familiar with the pro style offense as well. I think, yeah, good yards after catch.
It'll be fun to see what they get back. It's probably just going to be draft picks at this point, but I wouldn't be surprised if a depth receiver goes back the other direction.
Send Quez Watkins.
But listen, dude, I think that might make a difference on, again, you're just giving Kyle Shanahan speed to play with. You know what I mean? And I think if anybody can use it, it's him. So
yeah. That's interesting. That's very interesting. Okay, so for those of you who are go ahead.
I was gonna say, do you want to talk about these DNs? But you're about to do something official. You know what I mean? So
I mean, we've already gone over an hour, and listen, look at you.
I told you we were going to do 2 hours.
We're not going to do 2 hours tonight. We got to keep the fans wanting more.
We've got 2 other things we got to get to here. I mean, this is important stuff.
It's anything that comes out of my mouth is important.
I'm out. I'm leaving right now. I'm out of here
right now. Here's the deal. I figure because we are in the preseason phase, we can talk about those things next week.
You're killing me, dog.
Hey, listen.
You can't do 2 hours of radio?
Oh no, I can. I
mean, we're introducing ourselves to new people here.
Contractually, we said an hour. So we're gonna stick to what we said we were gonna do.
Sterls for the girls, not for the podcast, apparently.
You see, being my partner here, that's not what you should be saying right now. Don't be a hater, man. Don't be a hater.
It's a Buffalo Bills podcast. We didn't even talk about their game coming up.
Let's close out with that. We're gonna spend the next 5 minutes talking about the Bills preseason game against Steelers. Because I think this is important. It's important. It's one of those things we can stick in here and we can close it out. So context says the Bills got their ass kicked against the Steelers in the preseason last year. Now they handled business in the playoffs, but the preseason, the Steelers, boy, they really opened some eyes for Sean McDermott and them boys. Now, this is one of those where I expect the Bills to have somewhat of a game plan on the offensive line, at least, because you can't have 2 back-to-back bad performances from the offensive line. Like if there's any unit that has to get it right, it's them.
Especially with Josh Allen at one point this week being your only healthy quarterback, right? So Lord knows how many snaps he's going to take. Probably still the same amount. But if he does take the same amount of snaps, does that mean Ben DiNucci's playing 3 quarters after learning your playbook 3 days ago?
Yeah.
So you better have a plan with that offensive line to keep people off of him. You know what I mean? He can't be running for his life when he doesn't even know what the play call is.
Yeah. I mean, I think you should see Money Mitch play at least half the game, at least.
Yeah. Josh. I don't know what his personal deal was. I know he was back at practice, so it wasn't a big deal. But
Josh play the first quarter. Maybe we see Mitch play the second and third, half of the fourth, and then have Ben DiNucci come in at the end. Ben DiNucci, give him 10 plays that he can execute. Right. The runs I'm not worried about, but give him like 10 pass plays that he can, execute at a high level, and you can get out of, you can escape week 2 of the preseason. But what are some of the things that you want to see the Bills correct or show improvement on?
I gotta be honest, I was a little disappointed in the wide receiver room.
Okay.
Now, can you blame that on the offensive line? Sure. Can you blame that on quarterback play? Sure. But this whole offseason was about fixing the wide receiver room. And there was a lot of love for Chase Claypool to start the year, right? Before training camp started, through OTAs and stuff like that, there was a lot of talk about, hey, Chase Claypool, maybe they can revive him here. No, that's gone now.
Yeah.
And so Bird and Kane just got signed to 1-year deals, 2 wide receivers. One of them had a good year in the spring league. What is that called now? XFL, UFO, XFL, whatever it's called. Had a big year for them. Listen, I think Brandon Beane is trying to say something to these wide receivers by signing 2 more guys. Now, are these guys going to come in, make a difference, make the team? Probably not. But your job's on the line here, buddy. Like, you better get it together. And so what I really want to see is I want to see a wide receiver look good. I hear all this noise about Tyrell Shavers all camp long, and he drops a pass in the game. Keon Coleman is playing defensive back out there. And I mean that as a joke, because he was, he had to break up a couple passes that didn't get to him. I need a wide receiver to look good. I need somebody to flash. Khalil Shakir was okay. I didn't have any problems with what Shakir looked like, but I want to see a wide receiver look good. And whether that's the 7th guy in the depth chart, it's Tyrell Shavers, whoever that has a big game with Money Mitch, great. Or if it's Keon Coleman catching 3 balls on the first drive, including a touchdown pass, great. But I just want someone to look good.
Yeah, I think that's fair. By the way, Khalil Shakir looked pretty good. 3 catches, 29 yards.
But he's the only thing we can count on in that room right now.
Right.
I need more.
Can we get Curtis Samuel on something that's not a screen? Right? Like let's get some real route running, some concepts going.
Mac didn't even press.
Right. I mean, you're right. Like we need to see, because I mean, week 1 is just a few weeks away, and I don't want to take the Arizona Cardinals lightly, or I don't want the Bills to take them light. Not that they will, but the real deal comes in, and you need that time on task. And so, like, it's different from last year, where you had Gabe Davis, who was very acclimated to the system, Stephon Diggs. You don't have a go-to guy. You got Kincaid as a tight end, and you got Khalil Shakir, but outside of that, question marks.
Give me somebody to get hot.
Yeah. So offensive line, we need to see that improved. Again, the Bills are going to be going up against a 3-4 defense, right? So, and
that odd front freaks you out so much. Like,
it does, man, because it's hard. It's hard.
High schools play the odd front, man.
Listen. Well, the Bills have struggled with it at times.
Yeah.
So I'm a big trenches guy. I want to see the offensive defensive line look like they belong to the NFL. Okay, make me so I can go to sleep at night. Maybe they don't think about it that way, but I do. I want to sleep at night. I need to see these guys. I need to see these guys perform at an adequate level.
All right.
Wide receiver for you. And I want to see Kyrie Elam. Kyrie Elam, he's been having a strong camp. I want to see it all come to, unfold. Like when he's in the game, he makes plays. I felt like he had a good game on Saturday. Let him start, like Christian Benford is often injured. He's fine now, but like throw Kyer out there. Let Rasul take a rest,
Yeah, I'd love to. I think the defensive backfield as a whole, we're still talking about, is DeMar Hamlin the opposite safety of Taylor Rapp.
Right.
I don't know how healthy Edwards is, but that needs to get figured out here soon. Oh, I saw a little eye roll from you there.
No, man. I'm concerned about the safety unit.
But okay, guess who's still out there?
Justin Simmons.
Yeah.
And guess who's not signing him? The Bills.
Guess who else is still out there? A name we know very well.
Who?
Micah Hyde's only playing for one team.
Oh yeah, Micah Hyde.
And so if we get to week 1 and there's not a good answer there,
I'd rather have Micah.
Rule that out, dog.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Seriously, if there's still injury problems, Cole Bishop's still down.
Yeah.
Edwards hasn't played a lot. They don't think DeMar Hamlin can do it. I kind of felt like at some point during the year Micah might be back in that room. I kind of feel like that's might be right off the bat here.
The thing with that is at least you get, if Micah comes back and plays week 1, at least you got a guy back there that can tell everybody what to do.
Right.
You know, that knows the scheme inside and out.
Yep.
He may have lost a step athletically, but I think it pays to have someone, because I just don't have a lot of confidence in Taylor Rapp's control of the defense.
I thought, yeah, I know what you mean. I thought he looked better as the year went on in terms of playing, but when you're talking about mentally, yeah, no, I don't disagree with you. And I know in that defense, they like the safeties to run it. I really feel like it's really more Milano running that defense, but I don't know that for a fact. I just, in that room, if I had to pick somebody who was probably actually running that defense, my guess would be Milano's probably got the biggest voice.
Well, from what I've been told, the safeties run the defense pretty much. They make sure,
and that's how McDermott likes it. Like he always has wanted that.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're just on the field with 11 guys, it's very nice if that's what McDermott wants. But who knows that defense better than any of the 11 out there?
Yeah, and Terrell Bernard is really heady too, so I think he's going to be a big help. But him dealing with the front 7, I think he's going to have his hands full. So they need somebody back there to take the reins and take control of this thing. And I just don't know about Taylor Rapp, Cole Bishop being injured, Mike Edwards being injured. Like we can't have that.
That whole defensive backfield, I think, is a solid question mark that I'd like to see get some answers filled in on Saturday.
Yeah, man. And so maybe we start getting some answers on Saturday, man.
Or Sunday if you're in UK, right? Because it's going to be after midnight there.
No, that's right. That's right. To our friends across the pond. So with that being said, man, we've had a really, really good turnout tonight on the live feed. This podcast will be up on all major podcast platforms tomorrow. So you can find us on Twitter at Furrow Sterling, Rob at Rob T Radio. And this is Intentional Grounding. We're going to be here all season long, right here on the Sports Social Podcast Network. And with that being said, my man, shall we give them a go, Bills?
I mean, if that's it, if that's all you got to say, kind of boring. You know what I mean? But
it's never good enough for you. It's never good enough for you.
Ever. I mean, I talked you into an extra 15 minutes. I'm pretty proud of
whatever. I hate you. I love everybody else. I hate you. Go Bills, and we out of here.